Hello, welcome to my leather workshop. I have lots of knickknacks lying around, so I thought a leather cylinder style knickknack box would come in handy. Leather decor is custom made to fit the environment they will be used in, so I chose water marbled colors to add arts and crafts originality to my workshop. Like the start of any project, I drafted the construction plan. Drawing can be time consuming, so the main advantage of using a computer program to draw my designs is that I can use the work I have completed in the past. This new design uses gusset molds I have used for bucket bags, so for a bucket style box I used a wet molded raised and lined 4-inch gusset as the base or foot of the box, then a larger 5-inch gusset for a lid that fits into the opening. A strong and sturdy base supports the 5-inch walls and cylindrical shape of the box. Two separate molds offset a 1/16 of an inch are used to shape the 3 to 4 ounce vegetable tanned leather into an exterior shell, and another mold that is a 1/16 of an inch smaller or inverse mold for the lining to fit into very snugly when glued and stitched into place. To make the molds, I used my laser cutter to cut 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 inch laser grade MDF, glued the layers together to form the 1/2 inch deep gusset molds, and applied the finish. When molded and trimmed, the gusset rim needs to have lots of room for a stitching awl and area to work when trimming the edge flat for finishing. The main concern when adding a raised and lined fitted lid is that the edge of the wall is strong enough to support it. To add more strength, it is easy to wrap and glue a 3/4 inch reinforcement strap around the edge of the foot and the box opening. The next concern is how to open the box or how to attach an attractive yet functional handle. Water marbling is an abstract technique that floats dye on top of a seaweed gel. To create water marbled patterns, a marbling comb is used. To make one, use a scrap of wood and hammer finishing nails along the edge. To make the marbling gel, I use Irish sea moss because the texture of the gel can be easily manipulated with the amount of water used. To prepare Irish sea moss, soak in cold water for 48 hours or until soft and kind of slimy. Then blend 100 grams of soaked seaweed with 1,000 grams of room temperature water on high for a few minutes until smooth, which is a 10-to-1 ratio, so the solution never sets up hard and suspends the dye. Then pour the prepared gel onto a small flat pan big enough to dip the parts, about 1/8 of an inch deep. This is called a marbling size. For a thicker gel, do not dilute the solution as much, but not like a gummy. This type of water marbling is different than the normal mainstream method of floating an acrylic paint on top of the size. The dye gets absorbed into the seaweed gel instead of repelling it, so the size can't be reused too many times before the pattern gets smeared undesirably. To create the marbled pattern, I am using primary and secondary colors, sprinkling dots of dye strategically around the size with pipettes, then drag the comb through, moving the colors together. The size will hold the suspended colors for several minutes. When ready, place the leather face down directly into the suspended dye for about a minute, or less, pressing down the corners, allowing the pocket to soak up all the different colors into a finished print. Shortly after the print is made, it is important to rinse off the seaweed gel with a little cold water. When the leather is still soaked through, the part is squeezed into shape using clamps and plastic wrap as a moisture barrier. The plastic protects the mold as well as making the molded part easier to release. I use C-clamps and leave them on for at least 30 minutes before releasing the pressure. The parts can be let to dry on the mold itself to maintain shape. When the leather is nearly dry, I like to nest the parts together to dry evenly. Then use the raised lining parts to support the leather while trimming the raised edge flush with a razor blade. Gluing, or the glue-up strategy, is a very important part of any craft using glue. I use the strongest, less toxic glue made for bonding leather I can find. For flat bonds, I apply an even layer of glue on each side, sandwich the parts together, force out any air pockets with my fingers or burnishing tool on a hard surface, then apply pressure until the glue is dry, about an hour before releasing the pressure. For curved bonds, I use the same method but use a round shape or the wet mold for support to squeeze the layers together in the exact shape. My main concern is an even, strong bond without making a mess. A good tool to even out the glue along the edge of the seam is a pincher pliers. When the glue spills out, I clean it up right away, and to limit the box stretching out of shape, I let the parts dry completely before adding layers, trimming, or punching stitching holes. The inside lining is stretched together first before the exterior shell is glued around it and stitched together on the opposite side of the seam. This is more work than simply gluing together and stitching along the same seam, but much stronger. The first seam is very important to have a straight edge and match the corners to keep the cylinder box square. Reference lines drawn accurately for the glue to follow are helpful. To avoid slipping and provide pressure for a firm glue bond, I wrap the lining around a 4-inch round block and use masking tape to hold the edge in place. The tape can be left on when marking and punching the stitching holes too. I have a few stitching clamps and set them up so they are comfortable to use. A good clamp or stitching pony to stitch an oddly shaped box needs to be adjustable so the stitching seams are easy to see and gives enough room for my hands to pull the needles through. Saddle stitching is when we weave a thread back and forth through the punch stitching holes, creating an endless figure 8 pattern with equal tension on both sides. Since the inside is difficult to see, it becomes more difficult to find the hole to pass the needle through. I use my one hand to cover the next hole, so my other hand knows the stitching hole is very close to my finger. As the needle pokes through in a straight line, the stitching holes become predictable and easier to see closer to the edge. The next layer is the outside body of the box and needs to be wrapped tightly around the lining to keep the box square to the base and opening so the foot and lid fit. Air pockets will make the layers not match up, so the edge is glued in place first with an inch strip as an anchor, allowing the pulling of the outside layer tight against the lining. The glue is applied in strips along the length of the box as it is turned to squeeze out any air pockets. Care needs to be taken to match up the edges and keep the box body square. When the glue dries, the box body holds its shape. This makes the stitching lines easier to punch through and stitch straight. The horizontal reinforcement strips are trimmed and glued to fit square. This makes it easier to match up intersecting holes and pass the needles through. Leather is a natural material that moves as it is being worked on, so to keep the stitches tight in a double seam, the holes for each seam are punched in succession instead of at the same time. The horizontal seams are easier to stitch with consistent thread tension because they are closer to the edge. To add earth magnet organizers on the sides of the box, I used a 1-inch button mold, raised 1/4 of an inch to make them stick out a little. After I squeezed the water marbled leather into the mold and let the leather dry, I cut out a 3/16 inch seam with a larger round dry punch. To center the punch equally around the edge, I made an acrylic tool guide to fit the punch. Then sandwich a 1/2 inch earth magnet inside, surrounded with leather and glue. When the button is stitched into place, it adds functionality as well as strength to the shape of the box. The conditioning process is what makes the dry and stiff vegetable tan strap leather soft and supple. I start with neat's foot oil, applying a thin even layer, rubbing it in with a small sponge applicator, wiping off the excess and allowing the surface to dry. I follow up with an oil and wax conditioner after the box is assembled so it does not make the surface slippery and interfere with glue bonding. Natural vegetable tan strap leather is like a sponge, absorbing anything it comes in contact with. So applying penetrating oils require a great deal of care, or the leather will become saturated with oil, leaving a blotchy finish, or even worse when the oil leaches out, soiling your working environment. So I like to clean as I go and apply tiny amounts of oil in thin even layers. I cannot stress the amount of oil enough. I am literally applying a drop of oil at a time. Oil is something you cannot remove easily after it has been absorbed into the leather, and oil does not get soaked up into the leather in an even layer all by itself. It is not like paint that has leveling agents in it, so you do not want to let the oil pool on the surface at any time during the process, and more care should be taken around the molded shapes, corners, and box opening, especially around the stitch areas. As the oil is absorbed, the leather will expand and tighten the thread, making the seam flexible while at the same time stronger. To make it easier to mark the holes around the bottom or shallow seam, the stitching holes are punched through with a 2-prong chisel, punch block, and punch pad before the block is glued in place. Then each stitching hole is punched through with a stitching awl. To glue the foot in place, first rough up the surface of the seam. Leather will stretch, but the shape of the foot should be snug. Working quickly, the shape needs to be held in place. Pincer pliers work well to remove any air pockets and sink the foot against the box lining. Heavy-duty electrical clamps are easy to manipulate the edge, keeping the glued edge tight as the glue dries. Sometimes an old-fashioned stitching awl is easier to punch stitching holes that are difficult to punch through straight on a regular punch pad. When the holes are already marked, it is easy to cut through with a sharp awl. The trick is to have your needle ready to pass through the hole when the awl is removed. After the seams on the reinforcement strips are stitched, the edges will be uneven from the glue that spills out. I use fine grit sandpaper wrapped around a dowel or little sanding boards to remove it and straighten the square edge. Then use an edge beveler to remove the corner for a clean-cut, rounded appearance. A slicking agent like gum tragacanth allows us to rub the edge smoothly with a wood burnishing tool more easily. Taking the time to smooth the edge straight makes it easier to apply the paint. The amount of edge paint we need to apply is very small, so I fill a small glass jar to make it easy for a roller pen to dip into, and has a tight-fitted lid to avoid drying out and maintain viscosity. The paint will harden or get too thick to roll on evenly if exposed to air for too long. To assemble the lid, we start with the handle. The raised and lined pull tab design is built and installed in stages. The top has two rounded circles raised along the top, and the bottom half of the tabs are attached through a slit cut into the top of the lid. To make the raised area line up, I made an acrylic glue-up jig to center the raised lining, then offset the raised lining jig 1/16 of an inch to shape the seam on the outside for both sides. When glued into place, the pull tab becomes stiffer or strong enough to be pulled on and maintain shape. Stitches make the pull tab permanent, and to add strength I like to wrap the thread around the edge a few times and double or backstitch the seams. A 1/16 of an inch dry punch is the perfect size to allow intersecting seams and wrap the edge a few times. Before the thread wrapping can be decoratively displayed, the edges need to be finished. The amount of time invested in making all the parts adds up, and we can't make stupid cutting mistakes ruining that investment. In this case, a marking jig helps position 1/8 of an inch holes. A small ruler and hobby knife connects the dots for a hole that exactly fits the base of the handle. Taking a few extra minutes to draw and cut the marking jig for the cut that needs to be exactly center or be noticed if it's not pays off. In my point of view, if an edge can be seen, it needs to be finished. Then the bottom part of the handle becomes attachment tabs, which are glued and stitched into place. The next step is to glue all the layers of the lid together, starting with the raised lining. Then the handle is glued onto the lining. The interior mold for the lid is used for support as the stitching holes are marked and punched through. Since the lid has several layers and is being pulled on or thrown around, I like to use reinforcement stitches alongside the handle, so the layers are pulled together as a solid unit. I do this with a stitching awl, being careful to land the stitches on the deepest part of the bottom raised lining. For the next conditioning step, the Aussie oil and wax conditioner made by Phoebeans works well and is easy for me to get. I apply a generous amount, rub it in the surface and allow it to penetrate for several minutes, then wipe it off. I condition leather frequently to maintain its qualities, protecting the surface from cracking and enhancing the strap leather's natural luster.